Alright, I'm going to give this one a shot here. I'm worried about the background noise on the mic, but we'll give this a shot because I've got a seminar tomorrow and I want to make sure this is available. So, talking about breath testing, and the question in this presentation was does stopping and starting really cause invalid samples? So we go through a few things. Of course, the state's position is it's the defendant's fault we don't have a BAC. It's always this excuse that he's messing around with the machine. They're blowing and sucking, or huffing and puffing, or stopping and starting, or whatever the excuse is to blame it on our client. But if we look to the operator guide, the manual itself for the machine, talking about the data master here, if we go right in, they say, it's an invalid sample. If the data master detects some interferent substance in the mouth alcohol, while they're blowing in, it will produce an invalid sample. So that would tend to indicate mouth alcohol or otherwise non-lung alcohol, and not the person messing around with the machine. So the reason behind this is because they have slope detection software in the machines. You can see here that when it's going to detect mouth alcohol, you'll see a drop and you'll have a negative going slope. Normally a good breath sample, you're going to see a rise, turn over, and slowly continue to rise on a pretty flat plane to the right. It's when you have this dip and you have a negative slope that the software of the machine will flag it as an invalid sample. And here you see that flat slope that I'm talking about. That's what a good breath test typically looks like. And when you see mouth alcohol, you see it go up and dip. Sometimes you see it dip and go back up, but the machine should flag it as soon as the dip is significant enough in the first place. So what's the cop say? Well, still, after showing me the manual, it's still your client's fault. Of course it is. Because otherwise I couldn't get a refusal out of it. So we took those claims and we put these under the microscope, and I've got to give a lot of credit to Dr. Staubis and Cleve Johnson. They put this together. They got these. They got the information for us. They had under laboratory settings, they had a man come in, get dosed up with alcohol, and attempt to mess with the machine in all the ways that the police claim that our clients do. So let's go ahead and put it under the microscope. I think our first one here. Alright, no alcohol, so we got to control it.
Okay. This time, David, if you could stop and start. First off, try blowing for a short time and then try and sucking back. What happens? And you suck back. Suck back on the breath on the mouthpiece. Are you able to suck back on the mouthpiece? The reason why he's not able to suck back on the mouthpiece is that there's a one-way valve that prevents a person from sucking back. Okay, now try to huff and puff. Try to blow and stop. Blow and stop. Notice that the sound cuts off and comes back on. Cuts off when he stops blowing. Comes on when he blows above the minimum flow rate. So it's very easy to see and hear whether he's stopping or starting. Now he's got a nice, okay, then he blew a nice long time and got a 0, 0, 0.
Alright, so you see that? You saw what happens when there's mouth alcohol. I'm sorry, you did not see what happens when there's mouth alcohol. When there's no alcohol, when there's nothing in that sample, you see him attempting to mess with the machine as much as possible. It didn't produce any errors because it didn't have an issue with alcohol. There was none present. Finally, when he blew long enough, it produced a 0, 0, 0. And you hear that in the tone. When it's beeping, it doesn't have a sufficient flow. When you've got that long, steady tone, that's when it's actually recording something. It's when the minimum flow rate has been met. So with that one out of the way, I guess it wasn't a control, somewhat of a control, but I guess not your traditional one, as I was maybe leading you on to believe. So here we go. We do another one, and this is where you get too much.
You have a bottle of Absolute vodka, 80 proof, 40% by volume of alcohol. Have a little disposable plastic cup. I'm going to pour just a little bit, just probably about a quarter of an ounce or so, and have you then swish your mouth with that. Don't swallow. And then spit it back into the cup. Okay. I will now then hit the run type operator. I'll blow a nice steady stream. And we'll go ahead and blow. Detect the overflow. Put it here. Stop.
Alright, so when there's too much alcohol dumped into it, immediately it snaps off too quickly. You hear that popping noise. That's a 5-way valve snapping shut, saying this is an incredible amount. This is more than anybody should be blowing into the machine, and you'll get a separate error for that. So to advance it, now you get a better mouth alcohol sample.
Use the low again, and meanwhile we'll kind of concentrate on the display. Okay, it was up to around 0.05 and then it dropped down to 0.4 something, and that drop was caught as an invalid sample.
So there you go. It was mouth alcohol. Enough had dissipated from the mouth that it didn't produce the detector overflow. I mean, the guy was swishing vodka in his mouth directly. But when we got to that point, the machine recognized the negative slope and produced the invalid sample. Take another look here. This is control.
Okay, give a nice long steady blow. Notice the longer he blows, the higher the test result is. At this point, he's exceeded the minimum volume needed, and looks like he's around a 0.06 something. And he could have stopped 0.063 is his test result there.
Alright, so you can kind of see the numbers rise quick and then slowly level off. I don't know if you can really see them level off. They weren't rising quite as quickly towards the end, and that would be representative in that slope that I showed you at the beginning.
Now David's going to huff and puff for a period of about 2 to 3 minutes.
See, the machine can go up and down, but when it drops to that minimum flow rate, it doesn't trigger an invalid sample. It's only when that minimum flow rate's been met.
The machine is asking if does the subject refuse, yes or no. He's not refusing. We're going to have you try it again. Had I pressed yes, then the printout would have been a refusal. We'll see what the printout is with a not refusal. And it's an incomplete.
Alright, and that's what often happens is the officer yelling at the poor guy You gotta blow harder, you gotta blow longer. I know when you're messing with this machine. I've been doing this for 30 years. I do hundreds and thousands of these tests. No, and then they press yes at the end and you get a refusal on your ticket. Here, you have an incomplete sample. It did not get a sufficient sample, so it labeled it as incomplete. Not an invalid, but an incomplete, and not a refusal either.
Okay, David, again, we want you to not make a tight seal around the mouthpiece. I'm going to hold up a little bit of ribbon that will hopefully demonstrate that there's airflow.
Alright, I think that one was more for fun than anything, but Cleve made a good cameo appearance in that one. He didn't get a good seal, but there's still enough airflow flowing through the machine to produce the 037. So, after all of that, after looking at all the ways he blew into the machine, there were no invalid samples due to anything besides mouth alcohol. And if you have experience with one of these machines, you would see that pretty quick. I've got one in my office. It's fun to play with, and it is frustrating when police officers will tell you that this is due to my client messing with the machine, as they would say. And then this is one of Cleve's cases in where the prosecutor tried to keep Cleve from using any type of demonstration video. They basically say that 2% had an invalid sample even though they had no mouth alcohol. I think this is coming from a study. I'm not particularly familiar with the study, but if you're relying on 2% and your officer is saying, well, 2% of the time, it's like, no, it was mouth alcohol. And the rare instance, it's highly prejudicial to be able to bring that in and say that he refused when you've only got a 2% chance of that actually being true. I forgot to even put this in there.
What do you think the chances are?
Not good.
You mean not good like 1 out of 100?
I'd say more like 1 out of 1,000,000.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Alright, well, as funny as that might be, there really is no chance. There's no chance that it wasn't something other than non-lung alcohol that was creating the problem. I suppose it's 2%, but if you're going to hang your head on that, then I guess that's your choice. But here they filed a motion to prohibit distribution or use of court-ordered video demonstration. So now they're trying to keep him from letting anybody else see this. Here you go, it's on the internet. But they were trying to keep this out of the public eye, keep other people from learning that this was really the issue. So, and it's shocking because back in 98, the AODA wrote a memo. They said that when you get an invalid sample, don't worry about why, but just do a new 20-minute observation period. Well, they'll tell you, any cop will tell you, it's part of their training. The reason they do the 20-minute observation period is to make sure that you don't have a mouth alcohol issue. While they might not say that outright, that's what the 20-minute observation period is for. So when they get an invalid, don't worry about why, just do another 20-minute observation period. To me, it's an admission that it's mouth alcohol or non-lung alcohol, but at the very least, they should be conducting a new observation period. So back to the original question, does stopping and starting really cause invalid samples? I think the answer to that is just a big no. I don't know how to make it more clear. It's just infuriating when you get answers from the police and from the courts that they're going to either hold a refusal against my client or that they're going to impose an administrative license suspension and take away his ability to drive for the first 30 days. based on a falsehood. It's frustrating, but that's why we got to get this message out there. So hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope that helps you out.